United Steelworkers represented employees, and 25 are management folks. Age range, probably 21, 22 to about 71. So we have a pretty wide span of folks that work at our plant. Our coke that we make, both size and chemistry of the produced coke, is superior to domestic and imported coke-related products. We consume daily in the vicinity of about 1,400 tons of coal a day. Menneson, the facility equipment, we operate 2 coke oven batteries. They're slot-type batteries, and they house 56 ovens. On 1B battery, that's 37 ovens, and on 2 or C battery is 19 ovens. A battery is basically a series of slot-type ovens side by side by side by side by side. So you have 37 that make up 1B, separated by a coal bunker, and on the other side is 19 that make up 2C battery. We also have a byproducts recovery plant and a boiler operation. So if you go down to the food lab, right, and you look up next to the food lab and all that steam coming out, that's the boiler house. And so you got steam coming out. It's like a pop-off valve. There's steam that comes out of that facility all the time. It's steam, boiled water. Just the same as if you were boiling water on your stove to make tea, you got steam coming out of it. Additionally, we have a biological wastewater treatment facility and a barge unloading facility. That's us in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania in the great city of Menneson. Now, we're part of the food chain of the whole steel making process, right? We produce coke. Coke production is, coke making is that facility there. And I'm going to take a walk up there because, yeah, I got this nifto thing, but I'm better at pointing, right? So we've got coke making. So we take coal, our raw material is coal. We take coal and we put it into ovens, and those ovens bake the coal for about 17 hours. And that's a nominal figure because you can heat to a different production rate if you wanted to go higher or lower. It's the matter of putting the right amount of heat to the coal that you're baking. We find that 17-hour works real well at our process because it helps us to produce the highest quality of coke that we can make. It's very stable, it's very strong, it's low moisture, it's good coke. Now, coke is used as a raw material in the blast furnace. For those that were at the last meeting on November the 1st, we showed you a side view of the blast furnace. And basically, a blast furnace is where they take layers of coke and layers of iron ore, and it works its way from the top down to the bottom. And you have molten iron that comes out of the bottom of the blast furnace. So you're loading into the top, and then it comes out at the bottom into basically a molten iron catch basket, whether it's some sort of vessel that they can move the iron, molten iron, to the next process. And that liquid molten iron then goes to a steel making process, right? But whether that steel making process is a basic oxygen furnace or a mop shop, right? They add more materials as well as a high degree of oxygen to then convert the molten iron into steel. There's electric arc furnace, that they use a lot of scrap for that. Basically, the coke making and iron producing goes into the basic oxygen furnace type of process. In addition to that, though, you've got a caster, and the caster then helps to shape the steel, the molten steel, into whether it be a bloom or a billet, whether it be a slab, or whether it be something that's then taken to a hot mill. Oops. Yep, hot mill. And the hot mill then continues to process it further till you end up with coils of steel. Coils of steel then go to the finishing department, and out of the end of the finishing department, or finishing part of the plant, you end up with, whether it be hot roll, whether it be cold roll, whether it be galvanized or galvanneal, whether it be a tin plate, or whether it be tubular. So various steel products. All of this started, beginning of the process is the coke plant, right? So that's kind of where we are there. Got my back even. So how's coke made? So like I said, we take ingredients. Hello? So we take ingredients, right? And our ingredients, we have 4 different types of coal. We have high vol A, high vol B, medium vol, and low vol. Those are our ingredients that we use to make coke. It's derived from low ash, low sulfur bituminous coal. And it's baked in an oven, absent of air, in a volatile matter where constituents are driven off in the baking process in the oven without oxygen, captured in our piping that goes down to the byproducts area. The temperatures reach as high as, it says 2,400 degrees. I'm going to say that's a little low. At the current coking rate we're at, we're aiming for about 2,450 degrees in our flues, our heating flues, so that the coke being pushed out of the oven reaches about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? And right here, this is coke being pushed out of the hot car through the coke gun and door machine with a hood car in place going into our hot car. That hot car is then taken down to the quench tower where we make clouds. That's where the big plume of steam comes out of the quench tower, because we're taking that 12.5 tons of coke down to the quench tower and we're dousing it with about 1,500 to 2,000 gallons of water to cool it down. We're taking it from 2,000 degrees probably down to about 100 to 150 degrees. So that process of cooling it down is where the big plumes of steam come out of our quench towers. Talked about byproducts. Well, we're capturing the volatile matter that comes out of the gas. We're capturing in a series of piping that goes down to the byproducts area. And in the byproducts area, we are extracting from the coke oven gas and the liquids tar, crude coal tar, which is used for pavement sealer, psoriasis treatment, fuel for boilers, paint manufacturing. I've even heard, ladies and gentlemen, that it is used in some hair loss type of stuff. Okay? Light oil. Light oil is an additive that's used in gasoline and jet fuel for an octane boost. Elemental sulfur, sulfuric acid production, matches, insecticides, fungicides, a lot of stuff like that come from from the sulfur, elemental sulfur that we produce. Liquid ammonium sulfate, LAS, used in the agriculture industry for fertilizer. And clean coke oven gas, which is fuel for the batteries and boilers at the plant. So we're doing a lot of recycling and reusing of the materials that we have there and selling some of these products as byproducts. So, why are we having these meetings? Well, one of the things we talked about with the consent decree, we went through a series of negotiations, and in those negotiations were the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, also known as EPA, the Department of Justice for the United States, the DOJ, and an environmental activist group called Penn Environment. So we all sat in a big room for a series of many, many long meetings to negotiate consent decree, a consent decree that we could all live with. One of the things that came about with the consent decree is we were going to have these meetings. And here we are. So, some of the updates and some of the things that were mandated from the consent decree. The H2S analyzer was installed in the plant in August of 2016. That allows us to measure the hydrogen sulfide in the coke oven gas, and I think it's about every 6 seconds it takes a sample. Once every 5 minutes it takes a sample, okay? So it's taking a sample, and it's doing that. If it's once every 5 minutes, that's 12 times an hour, times 24 hours, so you do the math. A lot of samples per day are being taken, and we have to hit a daily average that is stipulated by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and EPA, and we meet that. The analyzer continually monitors the concentration of hydrogen sulfide in the gas stream. We were asked at the last meeting, how much investment have you made in the plant? Remember that? The cost to install this was $100,000. That was done in 2016. So is it really part of the consent decree? Yes, it was, because it's mentioned in there that we must have this, and we must have it in operation, and we must maintain it to be in compliance. In addition to that, a welcome to Menneson for me was we received a letter from Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection that says thou shalt start in 2016 doing method 9 readings of our combustion stacks. Our combustion stacks, that's these fellas here. Those big things that stick out above the skyline, you ride through and you see those sticking out at Menneson. One of them is like a brown looking thing, and the other one's kind of a white thing with a little black top on the end of it. See? Those are combustion stacks. They actually take the waste heat from the battery and help assist with the combustion of the batteries. So we did the method 9 readings, so we had to do those every hour, or 1 hour per day, every day, 365 days a year, beginning in February of 2016. The continuous opacity monitors were part of the consent decree that we would put those things in place. And what is that, by the way? That's what this is here. That's actually, on this side, you've got a light source, and on that side, you have a mirror, and it shines a light source across to the mirror, and it bounces back to the light source, and it measures how much light you see. If the light is 100%, then you have 0% opacity going out of the stack, by theory, right? If it's 10%, so you have 90% coming back, then it's 10% going out of the stack. Just to give you what that might look like. So we had timelines that we had to hit. We had to put together paperwork, and we had to put together basically a request for determination with the state that we would put these things in, they would be placed at a certain point, that we were going to do this by a certain timeline, and once installed, they had to agree to what we were buying and where we were placing them and when they would be installed. Then we had to do a RADA testing certification. Cost of all that, $205,000. So that's another one of the investments made as part of the consent decree. Now, we did our RADA testing in December, and we are currently awaiting to receive the results of the certification test for the monitors. Once we receive those results back, then we will then forward it to PAYDEP, to the state of Pennsylvania in Harrisburg. They'll review our results. They'll review the testing that was done and say whether they give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But will be totally in their wheelhouse, if you will. We've met all the timelines associated with the agreement that was made based on the consent decree. We're right on track. We had to put together an oven maintenance plan. Okay, the oven maintenance plan basically is fully implemented. We had to install a calorimeter. We had to install an oxygen analyzer and a carbon monoxide monitor. Those were installed really before the consent decree was even, negotiations had started. We put those in place back in the fourth quarter of 2015. But part of the consent decree says, thou shalt maintain those and keep them in operation, which we have. Part of what was asked of us is, so the heating system on the batteries, this is the top of the battery, by the way. These are lids that we pull when an oven is empty and we fill with coal. Whoops. And these are flue caps, right? And for each oven chamber, there's 28 flue caps on this side and 28 flue caps on that side. So 56 flue caps that control the heating inside that oven chamber. We seem to have perhaps some heating inconsistencies. So what we were challenged to do was to evaluate and reset as necessary the nozzles at the bottom. This is the gas that comes in, we call it underfiring. The gas comes in through the underfiring system, goes up through this piping, and that feeds the gas that goes in that you would measure by pulling that flue cap and looking down inside. Okay? So we went and we reset all the battery to the original equipment manufacturer's specifications. If it says have in position 1, which is over here, flue cap number 1, the orifice size should be X. We put an X there. If flue cap number 7 was an X plus 7, we put an X plus 7 there. Whatever the manufacturer's specification said it should be, that's what we set it for. That was all done. Now, think about it, we've got 56 ovens, and 56, so we did this on a whole heck of a lot of nozzles. Okay? The other thing that they made mention was that flue caps, we need to pull them so that we can take a pyrometer and look down inside and get an accurate temperature of what it is. But we're required to, when the maintenance work is done, when that's done, we replace the flue cap back on the oven. That is done. We also need to document if we have any offer extended periods of time to do any extended maintenance work. Like each one of the 56 ovens we have, we will do cross-wall evaluations where we actually look at every flue from 1 to 28 on both sides of the heating wall. And we'll have those flues off till we get that done, and then we'll replace them. When we do that test, those look-see, we have to document that we've done that. Okay? All right, back to the coke plant. In addition to all that, we also have to do a battery evaluation. And we're required within 2 years of the effective date of the consent decree to do an official battery evaluation utilizing a qualified person to do the evaluation to look at, for the scope, the heating operations and the oven walls to make sure that they are in good repair. Whatever is found to be needing work needs to be done. The recommendations of the report will be made in your battery repair work plan, and that work plan will need to be submitted to the agencies. Remember, we're sending this stuff to the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, we're sending it to the US EPA, we're sending it to the Department of Justice, and we're also sending it to the other party that was in the negotiations, Penn Environment. Okay? By the way, just so everybody knows, that's a pusher machine. When I talk about pushing an oven out, that is the ram that is used. These are individual doors for an oven. So let's say this is oven number, I'm going to guess and say this is about C20. 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 14. I'm pretty close. There's a corresponding to that oven number on the other side. We take off the same door. If we're taking off the C9 on this side, we take the C9 off on that side. We line the door machine up, the coke guide up, the hot car up, the hood car up, the pusher ram. Everything is ready. We have all the permissions. We can then go ahead and push the oven. Okay, I digress. So, pushing emission control system. We had to do an evaluation of our pushing emission control system. As I said, you got the door machine, you got the coke guide, you got the hot car, you got the hood car. Coke's going through the coke guide and going into the hot car. And we had to do a pushing observation. We were required to do 90 days worth of 4 consecutive ovens every day for 90 days and make sure that we do the evaluation that every oven in the population, so all 56 ovens had to be observed during that 90 days. It would have been very easy to say, oh, well, I know B1's a good oven, and I know B6 is a good oven, and I know this is a good, we'll just push those ones and everything's cool, right? No. No. B1 gets observed, C27 gets observed, and everyone in between gets observed. Okay? So using a modified method 9 for 90 days, and the results determined that an engineering evaluation of the pushing emission control system was not necessary. We had a certain percentage that we had to hit based on the observations by a certified method 9 observer. That certified method 9 observer was watched by, one day by the EPA. They sent 2 inspectors down to observe his observation to make sure that we were looking at the right stuff. And by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. They sent 2 observers 2 different times to look to make sure that the guy was looking at the right things and measuring the right things, and they agreed with the readings that were being had. the pushing emission evaluation, engineering evaluation was not necessary because we passed. After the 90 days, we are continuing on with 3 days a week, every week, from now until the length of the consent decree. And we are measuring, and within a quarter, a calendar quarter, each one of the 56 ovens have to be observed. So I can't take my favorite oven and look at it every day and say, I got this. It's not legal. The PECS, the Pushing Emission Control System, operation and maintenance plan was also implemented. Okay? We have to look at things like, there's a belt there. See that belt? It's an actual belt that covers the ductwork that allows, when the fans kick on and it starts pulling the particulates and anything out of the push to the baghouse, the fact that that belt is up and over there, it allows that to pull through. Where the belt is sealed off, it wouldn't allow it to pull through. We have to inspect the belt. We have to inspect the hood car. We have to inspect the door machine coat guide and its components and make sure that all those things are operating properly on a daily basis. That's part of our plan. In addition to that, there's a baghouse. That's that silver thing you saw, Dave, that I told you about that with the 4 modules, right? We had to put differential pressure gauges in that so that we measure on a turn-by-turn basis, and we can identify if the differential pressure goes out of operating parameters. We know we have a problem. We know we have to do something and try to make it right. And it's also connected to our programmable logic control system, as well as our historian system. So all that stuff is captured. We're able to see what goes on a day-to-day, turn-by-turn, oven-by-oven basis. In addition to that, we had to put a fugitive emissions plan together. The fugitive dust control plan was implemented in December of 2014. We got one young lady that puts probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 10,000 steps several days a week doing some of this work. We do a perimeter inspection of the plant every day to make sure that we're looking for any fugitive emissions problems, as well as any fugitive odors or anything like that we see that's unsightly. We're about it, looking for it and trying to identify it and trying to control it. Daily observations for fugitive emissions are ongoing. Any new wet, because we have a water truck running through our plant pretty much day to day. It's got a vacuum cleaner and it's got a watering device on it. Now obviously if it gets down to -10 degrees, we're not going to do a lot of watering, but we will continue to use the vacuum cleaner to clean any dust or anything that's on the roadways so it doesn't translate into fugitive dust going into the air and into the neighborhoods. One of the big things was we did a desulfurization plant study. As we're sitting down there, one of the big things that PADEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, wanted to focus on was when we have a desulfurization plant outage, if there was any control technologies that we might investigate, look at, try to figure out to use as an alternative scrubbing device during that outage. Realistically, we didn't have an idea. I mean, we didn't know. Well, one of the guys from PADEP says, well, maybe you can look at something like this, and it was a scrubber on a skid thing. We looked at that and we thought, That's got some problems in its own, and it might be a control problem for us, right, Josh? So we looked at something else, and it was using caustic. We installed this. We also installed that orange piping you saw, Dave, right? That orange piping is to reroute the coke oven gas so it comes down through this column here. So we're actually using caustic to clean the coke oven gas. By the way, Mrs. Siki, see this building here? Right up in here, that's the exhauster floor. You might have heard that word before. All right? But anyway, but he doesn't sit very often. So the coke oven gas comes down through here. The caustic cleans the coke oven gas. The liquid material that comes off of it is a spent caustic material that we have to capture, and we would reutilize that in the ammonia still at a later date. We ran a trial from July 10th through July 17th. First question, can we clean the coke oven gas to the limits of our permit? The answer to that was yes. As a matter of fact, with coke oven gas, with a certain level of the caustic, we cleaned it so well that we thought our H2S analyzer went bad. Right, Josh? I mean, it was like we were down to nothing. But we were using a lot of caustic, and we were going to build up a whole lot of the spent material that we were going to have to use at a later date. So, spent caustic was recycled in a wastewater treatment facility, and we did that by introducing that spent caustic into the ammonia still, and then it would eventually report to the wastewater treatment system, and that we did from August the 3rd till September the 3rd of 2018. So for 8 days we ran the trial, and we built up this material, which was somewhere in the vicinity of 60,000 gallons. It took us about a month to get rid of that material. And what we were looking to do was to find out if it was going to be any harm to the bugs in the bug plant or the water going to the outfall. The results of the trial are still being evaluated, so I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for the question right now. But we are evaluating it. We're trying to put our heads together to figure out, is this a worthwhile solution or not? What we don't want to do is, yes, it fixed this problem, but it created this problem and that problem. We can't do that. It's got to be a win-win-win-win-win. This column here, this is the H2S destruct unit, right? Scrubber, H2S scrubber, right? So in 2018, okay, I want to ask a question. I asked this question earlier today, and I didn't get many hands. Anybody here watch NASCAR? Anybody here like NASCAR? I got a couple hands up. Okay, all right. So NASCAR, there's all these cars, and they run around this thing. They all make left-hand turns, right? And they all go about 200 miles an hour. And they're doing about 500 miles, right? And they never stop, right? Well, no. They have to take pit stops. Why do they take pit stops? Because they have to get new tires and they have to get fuel, right? Got to. Can't make it 500 miles on that one set of tires and one tank of gas. Desalt plant's a NASCAR race. That desalt plant is operating 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on and on and on. It eventually needs a pit stop. You have to do some stuff. We've got media that probably once a year, once every 2 years, need to be changed out. We have to inspect, we have to fix piping, we have to do stuff that we have to take a pit stop, right? We took a pit stop this year. It used to be, back in Copper's days, a 28 days maximum for all outages you took for the entire year. We had to be less than 28 days. We put a plan together. We put a pretty aggressive plan together, and we were going to have this done in 20 days. But fortunately, the pit stop crew was a lot quicker, and there was not a lot of significant damage inside the desulfurization plant. So we had about a 20 or 21 day plan, which we were able to accomplish in 13 days. Okay? During the outage timeline, we had to do some specific things based on the consent decree and based on our agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection for Pennsylvania and Penn Environment. We'd let them know 30 days advance notice, hey, we're going to shut down on September 15th. And our plan is to be down for 21 days. We had to slow our production down. We weren't allowed to stay at maximum production. We had to slow production down. And our sulfur content in our blended coal, the ingredients that we mix in our coal handling department, had to be below the limit of 1.2% sulfur by weight. We accomplished all those things, and ladies and gentlemen, we were able to get the outage done and all the work done in 13 days, which was a tremendous feat. Tremendous. In addition to all those things, we also have to prevent malodorous contaminants from reaching the air. That's a mouthful. Okay? So if you look at this red circle here, that's basically our byproducts plant. And in the byproducts plant, they're capturing the gases, they're extracting from the gases and the liquids the crude tar, they're taking away the light oil, they're taking away the elemental sulfur, and they're making the liquid ammonium sulfate. There's a lot of pumps, there's a lot of pipes, there's a lot of vessels, there's a lot of flanges. So we had a third-party environmental engineering company come to the plant. They made some recommendations. We completed it in a timely manner, and I'm here to say that all their recommendations were addressed and implemented. So that was done. In addition to that, as part of this young lady's goal for 10,000 plus steps a day when she's not running, right? We do a perimeter inspection of the plant. What's a perimeter inspection? Well, there's our fence line up here, all the way around here. Obviously, she doesn't swim around, but she will walk that roadway all the way out to the end of our property and back. And she's looking for, and she's not the only one of our employees that are trained to do that. We have several employees that are trained to do that. And they're looking and smelling for malodorous contaminants from leaving our property. In addition to that, she does an intense up close and personal odor inspection weekly in the byproducts area, in this area here, right? She's also expanded that to include batteries and any place else in the plant that she deems that a malodorous contaminant may come from. What did I miss? She does coal handling too, all the way down here. Okay? So that's kind of where we are there. We also had to establish a citizen complaint program. Down at our First Street gate, we were required to post on our sign both a website or email address, that's that there, and a 1-800 number. So that if anybody had a complaint, that they could call or they could text, or if they had any kind of inquiry, they could use either one of those two. We were required to do that by the effective date of the consent decree, and that was done beforehand. The citizen complaint program was implemented, and 2 community meetings were held within the first year. This is number 2. We had the first one on November 1st. This is the second one. February 2nd of 2019 starts the second year, and we will have 2 more. In 2018, on this number here, we received 2 calls on the complaint line, and both were tests. The first one, I gotta say, it was me. I called that number when the person that sits at the desk where that number rings to was out of the plant on a training exercise. So I knew she wasn't going to be in the plant, and I wanted to see from a timeliness standpoint what it would take to get a reply back. And I think it was something like, "Hello, this is Randy Shelton, and I'm just testing this hotline number to see how quick the response is. It is now 10:02. Beep. Timer's on." Within 45 minutes, I got a call back, and she said, "Beep, turn the timer off," and she was out of state at the time. The second one happened, and it was our friend from the New Stanton, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. He called that number, it rang, and the young lady who it rings at her desk said, "Hi there, you want to see how quickly I answer? How's that? Second ring." Those are the only 2 calls that we got on that number. We've gotten multiple emails on this number. Most of them have been salesmen looking for business opportunities, or folks looking to find out how they can apply for jobs at the plant. And that's kind of it. Really no other, we have not received any. Now, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, they still get an occasional call or email, which we promptly investigate and report back to them. So, questions from the last meeting. If you were at the last meeting, you would have heard and stuck around for the little chit-chat afterwards. That flare, what the heck's going on with the flare? Okay, well, coke making is a self-sufficient process, okay? So the gas is produced when we charge ovens, and that oven is baked for 17 hours. The gas bakes off of it, goes down the pipeline, goes through the byproducts area, goes through all the extraction and cleaning and whatnot, and then returns back to the batteries as under firing, or to the boilers as fuel for the boilers. And whatever's left, the excess, is burned at our flare. I like to consider that as opportunity lost, actually, because if I could find a partner that would say, if we're working on it, we can use that to generate electricity, or we can use that to do this or that or something else, that'd be great, and we're interested. The flare burns excess clean coke oven gas that is not needed at the boilers of the battery. Clean coke oven gas. This is basically a really busy thing. Here's the batteries. These are ovens. Gas comes off. It goes down through the primary coolers. Then it goes to the exhauster. The exhauster is this big vacuum that's pulling the gas from the battery down that way through the primaries and then pushing it out this way through the secondary, through the precipitators, through the H2S scrubber, through the saturators, through the final cooler, through the benzol washer, and then either to the boiler house, or to the batteries for underfiring, or to the flare stack. The liquids that come off, the desal plant is in there, the ammonia scrubber is in there, ammonia still is in there, and the offtake from that goes to the wastewater treatment where we clean the water before it goes to the effluent to the river. And that's just the coal yard, the breaker, and all that stuff, the hammer mill, and this is how we blend all the ingredients to make the cake. CapEx. Question was asked, well, how much money have you spent? Well, we've already talked about some of the money we spent. But in addition to that, we spent $429,000, almost $430,000 to buy this new coat guide that's more environmentally friendly because it matches up real good with this brandy new hood car. Both of those things improved our capture efficiency during a push, and it was completed October 24th of 2018. Okay? To which was an engineering marvel to do some of the work that needed to be done. Right, Jason?
Right.
So, in addition to that, we had a CapEx cooling system improvements. Cost of $352,000. So, these are heat exchanger spirals, okay? This is a new stainless steel type that I think was used, right, Josh? This one's a used one. This is the old carbon steel, and this one's used. This kind of looks brand new. This kind of looks like it's old, used, rusty, you name it. We went to this design, and the objective is to maintain a reliable operation in a byproducts plant. One of the things you have to do is you're taking this gas through the byproducts plant, okay? It's all about flow, time, and temperature, right? And when you get those things out of whack, then things drop out where they're not supposed to, and that can cause you environmental concerns. Replacing these things and putting new stuff in has helped us to have better control over the gas system, gas cleaning system in byproducts. This is the wet sack unit, the wet surface air cooler. This is the one for byproducts, or for the wastewater treatment plant. These are kind of important stuff, especially as we talk about wet surface air cooler and cooling of the coke oven gas, because when we get into the extreme summer hot months, right? The hotter the ambient temperature, the hotter the coke gas temperature, the more difficult it is to take the bad stuff away. So all these coolers and all these spirals and all the extra added cooling we added to the system has helped to improve our efficiency in the byproducts. CapEx for a desulfurization chiller. This is where really the rubber met the road, right, Danny? This one here, $165,000. We installed a new chiller on the desulfurization plant to maintain necessary operation conditions. Completed in 2016. Again, you get in the midst of the hot, humid, ambient temperature where it's really difficult to take everything away. These allow us to do that. You want to connect with us? We got all kinds of stuff. We got the Twitter. We got the LinkedIn, Indeed, who knows? Facebook, we got YouTube, we got it all. and I'm Steelwolf. USAArcelorMittal.com. Okay? Again, thank you. I appreciate it. Any questions or comments, I'd be more than happy. We can talk about it. On the front desk, there are suggestions for topics of discussion at the next meeting. If you have something you want to know about, write it down. Be more than happy to, address it. As we had questions at the last one, and I tried to address those. Unfortunately, a lot of the folks that were here last time didn't come to the second meeting. Maybe they'll come to the third. Maybe they'll see it live. Who knows? That's pretty much it. Questions of me or anybody in the group, please. Anybody? Again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I appreciate it. There was a lady here at the last meeting, and she said something to the effect of, I don't see the improvements. I don't see the improvements. I think that's kind of what was said, right, Barry? Well, that was enough. I mean, she wanted to say that she's not seeing the improvements. I live there every day. I see the improvements all the time. I think we've done a heck of a job. I got a great team at Menneson. Every one of the 155 union represented employees there all have their hands on the rope, and we're all pulling in the same direction. Got 25 managers that are all trying to do the right thing. Okay? That's what we're about. So, if somebody can't see the improvements we're making, stand back, take a good look, because I think we're doing some really, really good things, and that's when we have a really good team in place to do those good things. Again, if you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you so much.